Hello, it's me again. Real quick on the nitrogen cycle. All right, so uh, why is it not letting me? There we go. My computer just woke up. So a little slow, like all of us when we first wake up. All right, so the nitrogen cycle is the title of these notes. These are under the biogeochemical cycle, along with the water cycle or hydrocycle and the carbon cycle that we talked about yesterday. Nitrogen is very important. It is one of the key components in DNA, in proteins especially. Um, so we've got to have nitrogen. Every living thing on planet Earth needs nitrogen. Um, but it makes 78% of the atmosphere. Like 19 or 20% is oxygen. There's actually far more nitrogen in the atmosphere than oxygen, which is good for us because oxygen is so reactive. A pure oxygen atmosphere would be very bad, especially for things like iron bridges that would rust incredibly fast. All right, but that's a different story. We'll talk about that later. So it makes up 78% of the atmosphere. That should be good, right? No, not really. The nitrogen in the atmosphere is in two nitrogen atoms bonded together, and they are very stable. So our cells cannot use that to make proteins or DNA. Plant cells cannot use that to make protein or DNA. So there has to be some way of converting the atmospheric nitrogen into a usable form, or you could think of it as fixing the nitrogen so that you can use it. Okay? Bacteria is that step. Nitrogen fixing bacteria is what it's called, and they help make nitrogen usable. Okay? So animals get their nitrogen from eating plants or other animals. Okay? Plants cannot use the nitrogen in the air. Plants can only use um, the nitrates that are, let's see here. Yeah, let's go ahead and copy all that. Okay. Most soil nitrates are produced by bacteria in the soil or roots of legumes. Legumes are your peanuts, your pea plants. Fun fact, peanuts are not really nuts, they're peas. All right. So these bacteria either live in the soil or they live in tiny little nodes or bumps in the roots of legumes. And in those little nodes, the bacteria live and they fix nitrogen. Okay. So nitrogen fixing bacteria change the N2 in the atmosphere into usable nitrates that the plants can use. And then the plants are able to live. And because the plants can live, then herbivores eat them, and then carnivores eat the herbivores, and the whole thing continues. When the carnivore or the herbivore die, their nutrients return to the soil, and the cycle continues. All right. So there are nitrogen fixing bacteria, and then denitrifying bacteria change ammonia ions into a nitrogen gas. Okay, so they help change ammonia or nitrogen compounds back into atmospheric nitrogen. All right, all right. So here's a quick sample or example. So again, we have the plants. The plants get eaten. We have their roots are absorbing nitrogen from the soil. That nitrogen came from nitrogen fixing bacteria or nitrifying bacteria. When animals die and decompose, the nitrogen goes back into the soil and gets broken down, so forth and so on. Okay, so nitrogen fixing bacteria, okay, nitrogen fixing soil bacteria, both of these produce compounds that the plants can use. And then denitrifying bacteria over here on the right hand side, they will change it into atmospheric nitrogen. Okay, I will post this video a link to it along with the link to this video that you're watching right now. There's Study Jams video, the Amoeba Sister video. All right, let's see here. Anything here we need to write down? All organisms need nitrogen to make proteins and DNA. Atmospheric nitrogen cannot be used by living things. Nitrogen cycle converts inorganic compound to organic compounds. This one might be useful. Nitrogen fixation is converting atmospheric nitrogen into ammonia. Ammonification is when animals excrete waste or die and are broken down by decomposers. Nitrification is converting ammonia, NH3, that means 1 nitrogen and 3 hydrogens, into usable nitrates, NO3, which means 1 nitrogen, 3 oxygens. Simulation is when plants absorb nitrates and make proteins. Denitrification is when bacteria break down nitrates into atmospheric nitrogen. All right. All right, think time. How is the water cycle important to the nitrogen cycle? Nitrogen on the surface of the earth is brought to the air during evaporation. Precipitation and lightning bring nitrogen from the atmosphere to the surface of the earth. Condensation bonds nitrogen atoms together in the atmosphere. Nitrogen on the surface of the earth is moved by bodies of water to the ocean. All right, so pause, take some time to think, like 30 seconds at most, 15 to 30 seconds, and then we'll see the answer. All right, so the answer is going to be precipitation and lightning bring nitrogen from the atmosphere to the surface of the earth. Okay, precipitation will dissolve some of that nitrogen, bring it to the surface. And then nitrogen fixing bacteria can convert it into a usable nitrate. Lightning can also split the nitrogen molecule, the N2 molecule, and that will allow those individual nitrogen atoms to sometimes bond with oxygen, forming usable nitrates. All right, and let's see here. I think that's all I have for the nitrogen cycle. All right, and that leads us to ecosystem change, about succession. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I burped if you didn't hear it, and we're wondering why. I apologize. Anyway, so that's the nitrogen cycle. We'll talk more about them, but that's what it is. All right, have a good day and stay curious.